Sportswatch podcast. Today we have a great guest on. We have former Utica College offensive coordinator, former head coach at Morrisville State, Curt Fitzpatrick. Um, just won the national championship for Division III at Cortland State. We'll talk to Coach at a little bit after 9 o'clock, maybe around 9:15 or so. Um, the stat man will be jumping on here in just a little bit. We'll see if we can get Coach Medicis on. Um, Coach Pags has hockey this morning, so Coach won't be joining us. If you're tuning in on YouTube or you're tuning in on Facebook and you have any questions, comments, uh, feel free put them in there. You can comment on anything we talk about here this morning. And a couple playoff games last night in the NFL. Let me just put those on here. The Chiefs 26-7 last night over the Dolphins, and then the Texans. I'm a Michigan guy, man, but C.J. Stroud's your rookie of the year. He might be one of the best rookie quarterbacks that we've seen in a long time. He put on an absolute show yesterday against the Browns. But they did have Flacco did have the two pick sixes. But I'll tell you what, that Texans team is fun to watch. He just threw for under 300 yards. He had the 3 touchdown passes. They're going to be a tough out. A lot of young talent on offense. That defense, D'Amico Ryans has that team playing well. They're a team right now. I don't know if I'd want to see them, but C.J. Stroud, another big day for the Texans. The Bills game got moved to Monday night. Some people, including myself, said, how can they move this game to Monday night? But then I saw the videos on Twitter last night, and that stadium was an absolute disaster. The Chiefs games, I think it was 30 below with the wind chill in that game. So you got the Eagles and Buccaneers on Monday night. You got the Steelers and Bills. You got the Packers and Cowboys today. That game's in Dallas. And then you got the Rams and Lions. You got Jared Goff coming back, going back. Matt Stafford going back to Detroit. Should be 2 fun games. I think that Packers-Cowboys game is going to be a lot closer than what people think. I think – I'm not saying Green Bay is going to beat them in Dallas, but I think that game is going to be fun to watch today. Michigan coming off a national championship game over Washington. A lot went on in the college football world right after the game. 2 days later, we get the info that Nick Saban, the GOAT, is going to retire. And then you get all these names that get mentioned for the head coaching job. You get Dan Lanning. You get Steve Sarkisian. You get Lane Kiffin, who I still think that Lane Kiffin should have got a look at that job. But listen, Lane Kiffin, with the 12-team playoff coming in next year, Ole Miss is going to be preseason top 5. Ole Miss is just cue that music down. Ole Miss is going to have a chance to get to the playoff and win a national championship. Now, if it was still the 14 playoff, would Lane Kiffin, maybe Steve Sarkisian, would these guys have taken a look at the Bama job? I think so. But listen, Sark's going into the SEC. Texas. Texas is a top 5 job in the country. And then again, Lane Kiffin, what he's been able to do with Ole Miss. Say what you want about Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin wins football games. A stat I did not know. Nick Saban was at Toledo for back in 1990. I did not know that. We all know the Michigan State resume. He was there for 5 years. Went over to LSU, an impressive 48-16, won a national championship there. And then the rest is history when he got to Alabama. 17 years, 6 national championships. And, it just makes you wonder a few things. Is the whole deal with the NIL, the NCAA, the transfer portal, all these things in college football. Had Nick Saban say finally enough is enough, that he wants to do some different things? And somebody said that there's a job that he wants within college football. I've said this before, and I believe Chip Kelly said this as well at UCLA, is college football needs a commissioner. College football needs a commissioner. This is getting to be a lot like the NFL. The money that these guys are making in college is ridiculous. And Jim Harbaugh gets up there every press conference and says the players need a share of the revenue. So as much as you may think Jim Harbaugh's quirky, and I would say he is quirky, but I think college football needs Jim Harbaugh. He's one of very few college football coaches that are preaching, the share of the revenue for the players. And that's one of the reasons why college football doesn't like Jim Harbaugh, particularly the higher ups, But think about it. If you're Nick Saban and you're Jim Harbaugh and you're all these big time coaches, and listen, I want Jim Harbaugh at Michigan for the next 20 years. But I said it in August on the radio, and I'll say it again. I think Jim Harbaugh leaves for the NFL. I don't think he comes back. Even though Ward Manuel is talking about a $10 to $15 million um, contract for Jim Harbaugh, which would make Jim the highest paid coach, I think, in college football at $15-16 million a year. He's not going to get $15-16 million a year in the NFL. But does he want to deal with potentially the NCAA coming back next season and having to sit out even more games? He sat out 6 games. And I know that people are going to say, and I keep repeating, I am a Michigan faithful. I am a Michigan diehard. And a lot of people are saying Sharon Moore should be the next head coach. I'm not going to disagree with that, but I will say this. Michigan returned a lot of fifth-year seniors. If you look at what Ohio State's doing for next year, Ohio State is returning everybody. So maybe Ohio State's taking a blueprint from Michigan saying, well, Michigan returned everybody. They went and won a national championship. Still got to play the game on the field. But Sharon Moore had a team that was senior-oriented, a lot of experience. He had to manage the game. He's the play caller. And listen, he did a fantastic job calling plays for Michigan. Jesse Minter, in my eyes, the best defensive coordinator in college football. I think Michigan had the best staff in college football, and that's not taken away from some of the other staffs that were out there. I think Kalen DeBoer's staff at Washington was great, and I'm not knocking any of the staffs. But what Jim's been able to do, and remember the COVID year, they were 2-4. They wanted to ride him out of Michigan, and guess what? So did I. I said it's time for Michigan to get rid of Jim Harbaugh, a Michigan guy. When that job came open, I said there's one name for that program, and it's Jim Harbaugh. And now fast forward, he's owned the Big Ten the last 3 years, 3 playoff appearances. He's owned Ohio State. And now I think Jim Harbaugh today or sometime next week, I think we're going to get the J.J. McCarthy announcement today. J.J.'s got to stay another year, but everything I'm reading says he's going to the NFL, which if he does, hats off to him. I don't know if he's ready to go. Maybe he's a late second, third rounder. I don't know. But I think if he comes back, Jim comes back, I think you keep a lot of this team together. But you also have a really tough schedule next year for Michigan. They got Texas they're going to play, Oregon they got to play, Washington, USC, Ohio State again. That Big Ten SEC is going to be loaded over the next 2 to 3 years, and probably you're going to see more teams jump. Who knows? Maybe Clemson, Florida State, make a run at the SEC. But go back to Nick Saban here just for a minute. And I will say Nick Saban, I think a lot of people would say he's the best college football coach we've seen, at least in our generation. And I don't think any of us thought that we were going to get this announcement because I don't think there was any indication throughout the entire year that he was ready to call it quits. The competitiveness in me and the competitiveness, and Nick Saban said, there's no way Nick Saban's going to go out losing in the semifinals now with a 12-team playoff again down the road. But he said this season was a grind on him, and at 2 years old, his body doesn't handle it the way that it used to. So I don't doubt a lot of these coaches for making that move. I think he'll find a way to stay involved. I think it's a tough situation for Kalen DeBoer of anybody following the footsteps of a legend like that. And the university said that Nick Saban's going to have an office at the university, and it's still going to be 100% open door policy to the players and to the program. Listen, he should have a statue outside. Let me see if we got the stat man. Stat man, I can't see it, but you're on.
Yeah, because where I'm sitting, you can't really see me because I got this window behind me.
Yeah, you're a little bit dark, but that's all right. I got you. I can hear you. I just can't see it too well. Statman, I was talking a little bit about the whole Nick Saban retirement, and I was even talking about, with Jim Harbaugh, I said it back in August. I still think we're going to get the announcement that he goes to the NFL. But with the NIL, with the transfer portal, with all this stuff going on in college football, I can't say that I blame the Nick Sabans for saying, you know what, I'm going to retire, right? I mean, you can't blame these guys.
No, not at all. I mean, it was enough that they had to that went into it as far as bringing kids on campus before, and now you got to worry about how you're going to be able to link NIL money and all this other stuff along with the deal. So I mean, yeah, I don't blame them. You saw it with Roy Williams, you saw it with Coach K in college basketball. So
Yep.
I think a lot of the older coaches who are used to the old school ways you're probably going to see more of them start getting out.
And I was saying, Stat man, when we saw and we heard the announcement of Nick Saban, all the usual names popped up. Dan Lanning, Lane Kiffin's name came up, Steve Sarkisian's name came up, and Coach Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin were two former assistants, um, for Nick Saban. And I said, with the 12-team playoff next year, Ole Miss is going to be preseason top five. They're going to have a realistic shot every year now with the 12 team to get into the playoff. Texas is a top five program. That's a top five job in the country. Now they're going to the SEC. So I understand those guys wanting to stay put. And Dan Lanning, Oregon's going to the Big Ten. They've recruited really well at Oregon. I don't think Oregon's going to go away anytime soon. But how tough is it going to be for Kalen DeBoer to follow in the footsteps of Nick Saban?
Oh my God! I mean, it's like he's right up there. He's probably the greatest coach of all time. So I mean, it's like his expectations coming in are going to be just through the roof. So I mean, it's going to be a lot of adjusting to have to do because he's coming from a place of Washington where they're not over the past 10 years or so they've been good, but they're not like a perennial college powerhouse. So I mean, it's it's going to be a big difference, a big shock to him when he gets down there.
Yeah, I would agree. And listen, I don't know if we haven't heard the the deal yet that Kalen DeBoer got. I'm sure he's getting a lot more money. And I thought this was a really interesting stat is when he was at Washington, and he wasn't there very long, I think a couple of years. And his coaching resume, if you go back and look at it, some of the places he's been at a lot of small schools. He's really a coach that's kind of worked his way up. And listen, I think he's a great offensive mind. I think what he did at Washington, with that team and Michael Penix and, what he did at Indiana. Again, he had Michael Penix at Indiana, but his offensive coordinator was making $2 million a year at Washington, and Kalen DeBoer was making $4 million. So there's probably a side to him that went in Alabama and said, all right, listen, what do my coaches get? Because I want to bring my coaches with me. And I don't know who's going to get the Washington job. I heard there's a really good chance Pete Carroll gets that Washington job. I don't know if there's any truth to it, but I mean, listen, he got mutual, I guess. I'm going to say he got fired in Seattle based off the press conference that I saw. And Pete Carroll said he still wants to coach. So he doesn't have to really go far. He's still in Seattle. But how about Pete Carroll still coaching?
That's incredible. I mean, what is he, like 78 or something like that? I mean, he's up there.
I think he's late 60s.
I thought I saw somewhere he was at least in his 70s. But no, if he's in his late 60s, I mean, yeah, he's got a few years then still.
Be interesting. I mean, it was an interesting name that
He's
got
a Pac-10 guy already, so coming from USC and all. So I mean, he even though the Pac-10 is not the same as it used to be, but I mean, he does know how to recruit the West Coast. So I mean, there is that anyway.
Yeah, some interesting names came up. I heard Cliff Kingsbury's name got thrown out there. Dave Clawson's name was thrown out there again. I'm not sure Dave's a West Coast. I don't know if that's really the best fit for Coach Clawson, but we'll see. I think that's a good job. I think it's a top 10 job.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially coming off a national championship. But again, what happens is he leaves, so now they open up the transfer portal for those players. And I think I think rightfully so. I think you should.
Yeah.
And then, Nick Saban leaves and the transfer portal opens up for Alabama, and those players. So now you get the players jumping out, you get the coaching carousel again. We'll see what happens with Michigan. I still think you're going to hear that Jim Harbaugh goes. There's been a lot of people that keep saying that he's happy in Michigan. You're looking at about a $15 million contract potentially at Michigan. But Statman, I keep saying, you don't know what the NCAA is going to come down on next year, right? He sat out 6 games this year. You don't know what they're going to find coming in the next season. Could he sit out more? Could he sit out half a season? Would you really want to deal with that if you're Michigan? Because listen, being the Michigan guy, I've said this for the last so many years. If he leaves, I'll be upset to the fact that he's a Michigan man. I think everything he said he was going to do at Michigan State, man, putting him back on the map, winning a national championship. He's owned the Big Ten the last 3 years. He's beaten Ohio State the last 3 years. There's nothing really left for Jim Harbaugh to do at Michigan.
No, not really. I mean, he's slayed all the dragons. I mean, he's taken out the big one, Ohio State. I mean, that was definitely great to see finally after all those years. Being beaten by Ohio State every year that last game. It was great to see these past 3 years. It's been really great for me to see. I'm sure being a fan, it's got to be even 10 times better for you. But yeah, no, I mean, there really isn't a lot more that he can check off the list. I mean, he's got that national championship, which is, obviously the top. So, I mean, it's great to see. I'm really happy for Jim Harbaugh. I mean, he's been in the coaching game for all these years, and it's finally great to see him win a title of some sorts.
Yeah, and I think with again with Harbaugh, and I was just saying this before you jumped on, is Sharon Moore I know did a fantastic job filling in for Jim, in those 3 games. And listen, Sharon Moore coached the 3 biggest games of his life. I mean, Penn State on the road when Penn State was preseason top, they were not preseason, they were top 10, and then having to beat Ryan Day and Ohio State, at the Big House was pretty cool. But I was saying this is that Ohio State's going to run it back next year. They keep bringing all these guys that are staying. They're not declaring for the NFL. They're not transferring. They're going to run it back.
Marvin Harrison Jr. too.
He's going to the NFL, but they're returning most of the nucleus from last year. However, is that the new blueprint? And we'll ask Coach Fitzpatrick, who just jumped on, so we're going to bring him on, Statman. I don't want to keep him waiting, but we'll ask him if that's a new blueprint in college football. So let's see if we can get Coach on here. Hey, Coach, how are you?
I'm great. How you guys doing?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for jumping on this morning. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
It's been a little while, Coach. I had you on when you were at Morrisville, and I remember when you were at UC and the timeline and stuff. Followed you ever since, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, well, my pleasure. I do remember being on the last time, so it was a while ago, though.
It was. We got to get you back on a little bit more frequently.
Yeah.
So, Coach, first, congratulations on a historic run. Great season this year for you and the program. But I want to kind of ask you a little bit about when you took over there, because you look at now like Nick Saban's retiring and all the pressure now on Kalen DeBoer having to come in and kind of fill in for the GOAT, right? Probably the greatest college football coach we've seen in our generation. You took over for a legend himself and Coach McNeil, where you're at. What was it like coming in, trying to, build a culture, build a team, and make it your own? How hard was that?
It was hard in some ways. It was easy because Coach McNeil was really helpful. I think my whole thing coming in was I couldn't be Coach McNeil. I could only be myself. I was honest with the players about that, but I felt like it would be foolish of me to kind of just go my own way and do my own thing and not kind of honor the traditions that Coach McNeil. So I tried to keep some things the same for the guys. And I think the best coaches understand that we don't have all the answers. So, I tried to evaluate the Cortland program in a lot of ways, and where they were having success, some things that they were doing, some things, not necessarily X's and O's wise, but some X's and O's, but more kind of stuff in the program, off the field stuff that I thought was really smart and stuff that I had never thought of doing before. So I kept a lot of those things. It was a blend. I kept some of the staff on. I kind of blended. I didn't try to say, I think if you go about it within such an ego where you say like, well, I'm the new guy, we're going to do things my way or the highway. I think you alienate a lot of people that way. So I chose not to go that route. Coach McNeil still, I lean on him for a lot of things. And this is 4 years later. So I think Coach DeBoer at Alabama, I think he'd be crazy if he wouldn't want to learn a little bit from Nick Saban, which I'm sure he will. So it's a delicate fine line, but I think you got to use the positives. Don't think about the negatives of following someone that's the greatest of all time, like Nick Saban. Think of the positives where you can have the greatest coach of all time be a resource. I'm sure Coach Saban wants nothing but success for Alabama, just like Coach McNeil wanted nothing for success for Cortland. So Yeah, I think you got to kind of walk a fine line, but it's definitely doable.
Coach, when you guys started camp this offseason, as coaches, you always know if you have a special group, and you've had a lot of success, winning the Umpire 8. You've had a lot of success there. I mean, offensively, you guys are a high-powered machine. You've always been known for offense, but, we'll get into the national championship game with the big stop your defense had. But, take us through kind of the offseason, and when did you know this team was going to be special?
I knew we had a chance to be really good. I knew we were going to be very talented. We had a lot of guys back in 2023 from the 2022 team. A lot of our best players in 2022 were back for this past season. So I knew we were going to be talented. I knew that our quarterback Zach Boyes and myself, I didn't coach when we played the Cortica Jug game in Yankee Stadium in 2022. It was a big game in front of 40,000 fans. It was televised on Yes Network, and I coached poorly, and Zach, our quarterback, played poorly. And so we had a chip on our shoulder all offseason about how we played in that game, and I think we learned a lot from that game. And then we went the following week and lost at Randolph-Macon in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And so we learned a lot from that. I think this team had we learned from our failures and from the year before, and had a big chip on our shoulder, not in a cocky way, but in more of a, we've felt as low as you could feel, and we lived through it, and now we're ready to reemerge and be better for it. So I think combining that mentality with, so that fueled the offseason, combined with the talent that we had, and I knew we could be really good. When we lost early in the year, week 3, we lost to Susquehanna. We had a 14-point lead with 5 minutes to go in the game and lost. It was like, when you look at it now, look back statistically, it was like, if we were on the ESPN, win probability meter, we would have had probably a 99.5% chance of winning, and we found a way to lose. And credit to Susquehanna, they made some great plays down the stretch to beat us. But that too kind of like built a hunger in our team that whenever we got in a close game in the fourth quarter, we weren't going to play passive anymore. We were going to be aggressive. We were going to go for the win. We weren't going to try and milk the clock. We were going to try and play aggressive and play our game all the way till the end of the fourth quarter. I think that kind of set this table for our team, leading through the end of the season into big Cortica Jug win at Ithaca, and then on into the playoffs. So, you never know if you're going to be. I knew we could be good. I didn't know we were going to win a national championship, obviously, but knowing how talented we were, combined with all the hard lessons we learned from the end of last season and during that Susquehanna game, I think those losses are what kind of fueled our team to be as good as we were.
Coach, you mentioned that Cortland Ithaca, obviously that Cortica Jug, that rivalry, and I remember watching that game at Yankee Stadium on TV on Yes, with all the big rivalries in college football. I mean, at the high levels, the Iron Bowl, Michigan, Ohio State's. How big is that rivalry? And I know for both schools it's huge, but even for like the communities, the schools, it's like everything shuts down, right, for that game.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's like the Division III version of Auburn, Alabama, or Michigan, Ohio State. It's big. I was an admirer of the Cortica Jug game as an outsider before I got to Cortland, and just seeing how huge it was, not only the crowd sizes at the games themselves, but just how much everybody cared about it. Now that I'm in the rivalry, and I've played in 3 Cortica Jugs now, or I've coached in 3 Cortica Jugs now, it's even better than I thought. I mean, our alumni are just, they're just so bought into that rivalry, both teams, and that's what makes it so special. The communities, driving around Cortland, seeing all the sheets hanging off the porches of the student housing, saying some things I can't say on air.
Yep.
About Ithaca, and then going up there to play at their campus this year. And it's awesome, like driving the buses in to the stadium and seeing all the people out in the front yards that are, the party starts early on Cortica Jug Day, and just seeing that, going into a hostile environment. But it's not hostile like mean. It's hostile like competitive, and it's a fun competitive environment. And it's so awesome to be a part of.
So, Coach, when you guys saw the draw for the tournament, and you guys had a couple close games. The first two games were really close against Endicott and Grove City. But when you saw the draw, what were your initial thoughts, reactions with some of the teams you could possibly play?
I was we were fine with the draw. I thought it was a fair bracket, honestly. Our players, we were a little surprised we were on the road in the first round. We had to go play at Endicott. That was a big. We thought, and I guess we shouldn't assume. There's our first mistake probably. We assumed that being a 9-1 team, we had the third strongest strength of schedule in the country this year. That we assumed we'd host at least our first game and then go from there if we were able to win. So to be on the road was a little bit shocking, but so we knew we'd have a tough game at Endicott, and we did. But we saw Susquehanna in the second round potentially, and that our players were very excited at potentially earning a chance to right the wrongs of that loss from earlier in the year and get a rematch with them. And then you see Mount Union. I mean, Mount Union has been synonymous with dominance in Division III football for 30 years, right? Since the early 90s with Coach Larry Karras. So we saw them at the kind of the top of our bracket and figured everything would run through Mount, and it just didn't work out that way.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes on the road to a national championship, you got to get a few breaks, along the way, and that was a huge break. But so let's fast forward to national championship game. I will tell you that I was in Disney with my wife and kids, and I did watch the game.
Tell me you were watching on a phone or something like that while
I was watching it. Yeah, I was. Because it was actually raining in Florida, so we didn't get a chance to do too much that night, which I'm glad I got a chance to watch it. And I kept saying to myself the whole time, I'm like, nobody can stop anybody. Like, they couldn't stop your pass and attack. You couldn't stop the run game. It's like, all right, who's going to get the first break? And then when they scored, I said, just kick it and get this thing to overtime, because nobody has stopped anybody. Were you surprised that they went for two?
Yeah, I mean, it all happens very fast in the moment. I didn't expect them to go for two. I expected them to kick it, and then we were going to try and navigate our way down the field for a field goal. I was happy though when they went for two, because that's the way I coach. I would have went for two, just like I did against Grove City. I think players like playing that way. I'm sure Coach Spencer at North Central, I'm sure his players were happy that they were going to go for two. Yep. So I was happy. They're such a good offensive team, and I felt like we could stop them for one play,
right?
But it was hard for us to stop them for 3 to 4 plays in a row consecutively because of the way they were running the ball and how good their offensive line was. So to make the whole game come down to one play, when we still had a chance to go down the field, we had 1:20
right
anyway. So either way, we were going to have a chance to go down and win it. So I was happy. I felt like them going for two gave us more ways to win without going to overtime. And our defense made a great play.
Coach, talk about your offense. So, I mean, your passing attack in that game, I mean, they had no answers, for you guys. Like I said, I was just saying, whoever turns this thing over might cost the team the game, and it was back and forth. But what did you see, in their defense that opened up your passing game? I mean, your passing game was there all year.
Yeah, we had some talented players at receiver and at quarterback, and even our running backs are great in the pass game. I don't know if it's nothing against their pass defense. I think they're North Central's an exceptional defense. Their run defense was very good, so it led to us calling more pass plays, which I think probably helped us in the end. That we didn't try and run it too much, but. Yeah, I mean our receivers when they get one-on-ones, we win a lot of we won a lot of matchups. Burgess and Lapp, Joe Iadivio came up huge. So, what North Central, I think with our quarterback, the way he plays, when they blitzed us, we got what we wanted because we can get the ball out quickly to receivers that can make it happen. And when they tried to play coverage, it's hard to contain our quarterback. And even when guys weren't open, he was able to scramble and make some plays with his legs. So, it's kind of when you play good teams, it was the same problem we had against them. Like, do you blitz the quarterback and give the receivers a chance, or do you play coverage and then struggle to get to the quarterback and let him manipulate the pocket and find a way to run? So yeah, I mean, our passing game was definitely on. Our receivers made some big plays and some tough catches too. But I thought, Zach, he's very good when the play extends. So when the play breaks down, he gets outside the pocket. He made some big plays running and throwing when the pocket broke down, when they decided to play zone coverage, and that was huge. So not only the on schedule plays, but when stuff goes wrong and you're still gaining yards and chunks of yards because the quarterback can improvise, a la Josh Allen, that's tough to stop.
Yeah, I remember my wife saying to me, what are you watching on your phone? And I said, well, I'm watching the Cortland game. She goes, Cortland, New York? My wife's a college football fan. She's a Buckeye fan, and I'm a Michigan guy, so we kind of go back and forth.
Yeah.
But she's like, Cortland, New York is on TV right now. I said, yeah, they're playing for the national championship. So she thought it was like so awesome. Cool. And many of us did, right? We were like, this is such a great accomplishment. Even if you guys didn't win that game, to see you guys go all that way, here you are, a small upstate New York school that just made this huge run. It was so great for the community, for the area. Just a great run, Coach.
Thank you. Yeah, the support, not just in the Cortland area, but all across the state in the football community. Not only we have a lot of alums that are coaching all over the Northeast, but just everybody, college, high school. I feel like this is a win for all of Northeast football. More so than just for our team and our university, but to show that schools in the Northeast can compete for and win a national title, first since 1991 in New York State, at least. It's really cool, and I'm proud and honored to for our program to be the ones to break through. I do think Division III football in the Northeast is getting better. More teams are competitive. We played that Endicott team. That defense we played at Endicott in the first round of the playoffs was very tough. I'm not going to say they're as good as North Central's defense, but they posed some problems, and they posed some problems for sure. Grove City was their team is they have a very good football team. So there's a lot of good football players in New York State in the Northeast. I think high school football in New York, it's shrinking in size. Like there's less football playing players, and some teams that were powers are now playing 8-man football or whatever, especially in the smaller schools. But I think the quality of the football players, I think they're playing football more. They're being coached. The coaches are doing a great job. So I think that, and our team is a reflection of New York State football. 90% of our players are from New York State high school. So I think Division III football in New York is getting better, and I hope this kind of proves to everybody that you can win a national championship being a New York kid playing at a New York State school. This year it was Cortland. Next year it might be someone else. I hope it's Cortland again. But I think it's a great thing for the Northeast and Northeast football.
Coach, the last thing I was going to ask you. So Coach Nicole, I know, is a friend of yours, and Jake comes on and does my football podcast with me, and I always ask him. I'm like, so what's next for Coach? Right? I'm like, you win a national championship. Now everybody next year is going to be gunning for you guys. They want to take down the giant. You've had a lot of success. You've won everywhere you've been at. Any thoughts of down the road, whether it's a coordinator job at a Division I school, a head coach at a 1AA? I know Jake always says you're happy where you're at, and I know that's the answer that every coach is going to say.
Yeah.
But any thoughts down the road of doing something different?
Not really. I mean, I get asked that question a lot. I honestly, I love being a head coach. I like that. I like that I don't have to ask a head coach if I could run a certain play, or I can just do what I want to do offensively, which is nice. But I don't love Division I football. Honestly, I think it's it's just a different game. Division III is the purest form of the game. Being a D3 coach, you're never going to be a millionaire, but I think you can. I live my wife and the kids and I, we live in Tully, New York. That's my wife's hometown. I grew up in Fulton, up north of Syracuse in Oswego County, so my family's close. There's a lot of value in that. Cortland, I think, is one of the best Division III athletic departments in the country, across not just football but all sports. I think athletics are important at Cortland, and so will I stay at Cortland my entire career? You never know what's going to happen in the future, but this is a good spot, and I don't want to chase. I don't want to chase something else, higher level, whatever, ignoring that I've got it really good right where I am. I got a school that likes football, that wants to win in football and in athletics. We have the facilities. If you've ever been to our campus, and we just had an upgrade in our facilities. I think we have facilities that rival a lot of small Division I schools in the Northeast. So I think we can compete to recruit some of the best players around. And I like to win too, So it's Cortland's a special place, and so I haven't applied for one job since the national championship happened, and I don't plan to. My resume still shows stuff from when I was at Morrisville. So,
well, Coach, that's the answer I was expecting, but sometimes the family life and all that, I get it. That when you chase that Division I, a lot of these coaches chase that money, and they don't win their first couple of years. They're out of a job chasing another place. So
yeah, it's not all about money either. It's Division III too. I feel like there can be we work a lot, but there can be a work-life balance. I'd love to coach my kids, little league team someday or whatever, and not have to go chasing NIL deals and all that other stuff. So I think Cortland's is a really good spot for a lot of reasons, more so than just football.
Well, Coach, it was nice to catch up with you. I appreciate you taking the time here this morning. We're proud of you. Maybe we can do it again before you guys start camp in in August. I know you guys. When do you guys actually start now, Division III?
Usually around the second week of August.
Okay. So
I'd be happy to come on. Maybe Coach Turcola can come on the same time. We can chop it up.
we were going to reach out to you to see if you wanted to jump on our college football podcast. And I said, you think he'd come on? He goes, he probably would. I can reach out to him. So we should have reached out to you to have you jump on that with us, because we always have some pretty good debates on that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm happy to come on whenever you want. So,
all right, that sounds good.
Yeah,
we're proud of you, Coach.
Thank you very much.
This way, man. We'll be in touch.
Sounds good.
All right, Coach. Thanks, you.
Coach. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, Coach.
He's awesome, man. I mean,
I
remember talking to him when he was at Morrisville, and then obviously he was the OC at Utica University for Coach Foz. I remember when we'd bring our Sequoia teams there for the camps. He was always good to me then, and such a class act. And I knew that was the answer Statman he was going to give us.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He's not going to say he's going to jump around, but I thought some really good points he made. The family life, it's not always about chasing the dollar, right? It's not always about chasing the money. The thing is, he's happy there. His family's, close by. They're a powerhouse for athletics, period, not just football.
Yeah.
Their facilities, if you haven't seen the facilities there, like he said, the facilities are fantastic at Cortland. So he's done a fantastic job. He's always been known for offense. Always an offensive guy. That's why I was literally watching that game on my phone down in Disney, because it was raining out in Disney. So at night we didn't do anything with the kids. We came back, we hung out. My wife says, "What are you watching?" I said, "I'm watching Cortland." She goes, "Cortland, New York?" I said, yeah. I'm like, "They're playing in the national championship," and she just kept saying, "Cortland, New York." I said, "Yes, Cortland, New York."
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool to see him on TV. But I'll tell you, I just kept saying, somebody's got to turn it over, because neither one of them can stop anybody. It was like back and forth. Like Cortland threw the ball all over the field, and the other team just was pounding it on the ground. And when they went for two, I mean, I like what Coach said. If they scored, they got it. They still had a minute and a half to go down and try to score, and North Central couldn't stop them.
All right.
But class act. So I appreciate that, Coach, and thanks for coming on here this morning. with us. Statman, are you nervous for the Lions game today?
Very.
I think you should be.
Yeah, because I mean, Stifford gave his life to Detroit when he was with us. I mean, it's too bad he couldn't have got us to the playoffs. I mean, but he suffered from what all the quarterbacks with Detroit had suffered from him all the way back to Eric after Barry Sanders. I mean, no running game whatsoever. So I mean, he was constantly having to throw the ball and open himself up to get crushed, which he did. So I mean, it was too bad to not see success with Matt Stafford, but I loved him, and he's gonna have a lot to prove coming back into Ford Field tonight.
Here's the $1 million question for you.
Yeah.
Do they boo him?
No, I don't see it. I don't see it because he played his heart out for Detroit, and he played when he was hurt. He separated his shoulder and he stayed in the game that year when he took that huge hit. So I mean, he gave everything for Detroit, and he wanted nothing more than to bring success to Detroit. And it just, unfortunately, it just didn't work out for him. But I would be very shocked to see the fans at Ford Field boo him.
Yeah, I would agree. I hope they don't, because he doesn't deserve it.
Not at all.
I have a hunch, and I've been high on your Lions. I love Dan Campbell. I love the style that they play. They're hard nosed. This Rams team is clicking.
Yeah.
Offensively, they have been clicking. If they can get a few stops, I think the Rams got a legit shot to go into Detroit and beat them today.
They do.
I mean, I'm pulling for your Lions. I'm pulling for your Lions to win today. But I just think the Rams are going to be a tough out if they get by Detroit.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's crazy to think because you hate to dwell on the past, but I mean, that 2-point conversion getting nullified, I think that's huge as far as not them having to play the Rams now. Could you imagine they win that game against Dallas? That's a different matchup. That's a rematch against Green Bay, getting them at home from Thanksgiving. So I mean, I think they would have revenge on their mind in that game. But now you got to play a red hot Rams team that's like you say is running on all cylinders right now.
Statman, what'd you think of how good C.J. Stroud's been this year for the Texans?
That was a crazy game yesterday, man. I was like,
but here's the funny thing, that if C-Bus is listening, he's gonna get on me for saying this. He couldn't beat Michigan.
No.
C.J. Stroud, with all the talent, wide receiver all the skilled guys that the Buckeyes had, he couldn't beat Michigan. And how fitting that C.J. Stroud won the game yesterday, where Michigan won the national championship in Houston on the same field.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
I think he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks. Great rookie season. But the only thing, and Statman, you've said this, and I think Coach Medicis has said this too. When these young kids come into the NFL, these defensive coordinators are so good.
Yeah.
They figure it out after a couple years.
Yep.
Maybe they'll figure him out, maybe they won't, but they are loaded with a yada young talent in Houston. They're fun to watch.
Oh, definitely. That was I caught parts of that game yesterday, and it was just amazing to see him. Like, there's this one play, the pocket was breaking down, and the rush was coming at him, and he was looking right the whole way, but then he throws. And like you didn't even see him like even step into this throw. He threw all the way back across the field, and his guy caught it, and he had like a 15-yard gain on the play. It was crazy, like how his mobility, his arm strength. It's definitely up at that level where he can be dangerous in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, DeMeco Ryans has done a fantastic job in year one, with the Texans. And listen, credit the Browns too. I mean, they were on their third string quarterback. They brought in Joe Flacco. Nice. He threw the 2 pick sixes, but Flacco's been good this year for him, late in games. So you can't knock the job that Kevin Stefanski did in Cleveland. I think they had a good year in a really tough AFC with the Browns got in, Pittsburgh got in, Baltimore got in. I mean that was a brutal division.
Yeah. I mean, we always talk about him, but I mean, look at again the job Mike Tomlin did.
Yeah.
I mean, that team was, I thought they were dead in the water, like, midway through the season. But just as long as he's the head coach there, I mean, you gotta think that they're gonna find a way to make it at least with a winning season or not even sneak into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to think too. I mean, the quarterback play for Pittsburgh's been ferocious. I mean,
Trubisky's gotta
they go to Mason Rudolph, who's been okay for them. They draw Buffalo, and I was kind of being a sarcastic guy on Twitter last night. I said, "Come on, we're going to move the game from Buffalo. We're going to move it. That's what football is for." But then I saw some of the videos of the field.
Yeah,
I was like, "Wow, like that." You can't put people in harm's way of traveling to the Buffalo for that game. But no, going back, yeah. But I agree. Going back to the Mike Tomlin thing, I mean, I remember listening to ESPN radio coming in, and everybody saying, "Oh, Mike Tomlin's got to go. They got to make changes. He's very faithful and loyal to his coaching staff. They have no offense. The quarterback play's been terrible." And I did hear yesterday that when this season's over, he's really going to take time to think about. Now, I don't know if he's ready to retire, but I think he's been there 16 years. I don't know if they got a shot to beat Buffalo. Maybe in bad conditions. I think they're a double digit. I think they're what? I was just looking here before we came on the air. It's right now they are a 10-point dog, and I think the spreads went down a little bit, probably because of the conditions. And all I kept thinking about, Statman, was you saying it's 20 below zero out, and Scott Frost's arm just fell off.
Yes.
The Kansas City game last night, it was like 30 below.
Yeah. My God, they said that was the coldest kickoff temperature in Arrowhead Stadium in a game.
Tom Brady had a really interesting take, and I guess I never thought of this, because they were saying, like, in conditions like that, it's not going to be an offensive game. It's going to be a defensive game, blah, 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 blah. And Tom Brady says quarterbacks love those conditions. And he said the reason why and I don't know if Mahomes liked those conditions, but he said the reason why quarterbacks he always loved those conditions because the pass rush couldn't get off the ball because of the field. So you had more time to throw the ball, which, again, if you think about it, you get those big pass rushers coming off the edge that you're paying, the J.J. Watts and those guys coming off the edge. In tough field conditions, you can't get that quick step.
Yeah, you're going to pull a groin.
And I guess I really never thought of that because, again, Brady wasn't a mobile guy. So I'm like, he's not going to run around. But I didn't think of that. Now, Mahomes threw for 260 yards. I still don't think Kansas City, this is the Kansas City team that you've seen over the years. I don't think they're a huge threat. But, again, as long as they got Patrick Mahomes, they're going to be a threat to anybody. Who do you like in the AFC, Statman? You like Buffalo?
I can't trust them. I mean, they've proven in the past they get to the big games and then they just they find a way to lose it. I mean, it's just so I don't know. I mean, as long as you got Mahomes back there, I mean, you can't count. I can't count on Kansas City at all.
No, you can't. I mean, I'm right now. I'd probably say you'd have to think it's Baltimore and the Bills are probably the two hottest teams. The Ravens defensively, I mean, they might be the best all-around team in the AFC. And, I mean, you got to go through Baltimore. But, Statman, I've been the flip side to say this. I mean, Lamar Jackson's a really good player. We know that he's a really good athlete. I still say he's an athlete playing quarterback or a running back playing quarterback. I don't have the faith in Lamar Jackson that if they're down a couple scores and he's got to throw the ball to beat you. I mean, I've said this for years. And I'm not taking anything away from. I know Todd Monken's come in and has done a really good job with the offense, but I'm not sure that Lamar can throw it 30, 40 times a game and beat you.
No, and I mean that's not really the blueprint of what Baltimore has always been built on, even since Lamar Jackson has come onto the team, is that they've been built on a running game and built on defense. And I mean, that hasn't really changed that much. So I mean, I would definitely want to try to get Baltimore. If I'm going to beat Baltimore, my defense is going to try to shut that run game down and try to make him beat him with the arm until he can prove otherwise. I mean, I would keep going with that strategy.
Yeah, I would agree big time with that. I mean, listen, the Bills go as Josh Allen goes. I mean, he's turned it over more, I think, than any quarterback in the league this year. but he's always got that gunslinger Brett Favre
Yeah,
mentality.
exactly.
He's not scared to throw it, against anybody. He's not scared to run the ball. He makes big plays with his feet. I think it'd be a really good game to see Baltimore to go to the Super Bowl, especially after the way Buffalo started the season. Right, they didn't look good, early on, and then they got hot at the right time.
Yeah, and I can't remember exactly, but they're dealing with a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball.
Yep.
Early on in the season, like Matt Milano, I know was out, I believe.
Yeah, they had a lot of injuries early on.
Yeah, and I think that thing with Brady you were talking about when the field conditions are like they're going to be. I mean, you as the offense are going to have the advantage anyway because you know which way the play is going. So I mean, it's like and then when you get the ball in your hand, you know which way you're going to want to move so that you can take advantage of your defender reacting to that. So yeah, I always see that these games always favor the offense when the weather gets bad.
Statman, who do you like in today's game? Who do you like, Packers, Cowboys?
Oh God,
right now it looks like Dallas is a 7.5 point favorite in that game.
Yeah, I mean that kind of scans, but I mean, talk about other quarterbacks you can't trust. I mean, Dak Shepard's another one, and I mean, Love's looked really, he's looked really good this season. I've been really surprised at how well he's performed. Now that Aaron Rodgers is not at the helm anymore. So, I mean, they're scary. I mean, look what they did at Detroit on Thanksgiving Day. So, I mean, I'd be scared to play the Packers, to be honest. And so, I mean, yeah, I think Dallas is going to ultimately win, but if they lose, I'm not shocked at all.
Well, I think Dak Prescott, not Shepard.
Oh, so I said Dak. What am I thinking of movies? God, Dak Shepard.
But
yeah, sorry.
I think to see Jordan Love in his first season, and there were times throughout the season, people said, "Well, he hasn't looked good. He hasn't played well." Then it's like, wow, he's starting to play a little bit better. To go to the playoffs again, they have a very, very young team. His first year, I think now you can say that he's probably their quarterback for the next so many years, right? You can only think that he's going to get better, as he gets older. But I don't think they go into Dallas. They go into Dallas and beat Dallas today. But again, it would not surprise me, like you said, to see Dallas lose this game. Mm-hmm. My question is going to be: let's say they lose. Do they get? Yeah, let's say Dallas lose. They lose today. Does Jerry Jones fire Mike McCarthy after today?
God, who knows?
With Jim Harbaugh on the market to go coach Dak Prescott and the weapons that they have, would they get rid of him? I don't know.
You know what? I think he's got to have the feelers out, though. I mean, if that does happen, I mean, you got to at least make get some guys interviewing. I mean, because they've underachieved really a lot under Mark McCarthy. I mean,
I'm gonna pick Dallas. But I think it'll be a little bit closer than the spread. It's a 7.5 point spread, but I'm going to go Dallas. How about your Rams Lions? Right now, Detroit's -3 today at home. You going with them?
Yeah, I am going to go with them. But I don't think it's going to be it's going to be a close game. I don't see them winning by more than 2 scores. If it's a win, I think it might be a touchdown, maybe 10-point win at the tops.
I like that. I'm gonna go with the Lions. I think there's a lot of pressure on them today, getting a home playoff game.
I do. Goff even said it himself. There's nothing more that I want to win a title for this city.
Yeah, I think a lot of pressure on them. I think the Rams are coming in with no pressure. I don't think anybody thought the Rams were going to find a way to sneak in. I thought they got hot at the right time offensively, and I think part of Matt Stafford's probably saying, "I'd like nothing more to go in there and beat these guys." But I think he's still got a good relationship with that city. I hope they don't boo him. I hope they cheer loud for him. But I'm going to go with the Lions close. But I would not be surprised if the Rams go in and beat them tonight. But I'm going to go with the Lions today, Statman, just for you.
Thanks.
All right. How about the Steelers-Bills? Right now, that line's at 10. It's a 4:30 game in Buffalo. Who knows? There still could be, 10 feet of snow on the field. I would think if you're Pittsburgh, You want a blizzard. You want below zero. You want the horrible conditions with a chance to go in. I don't think they got any chance to beat Buffalo, but it would not surprise me that this game's low scoring because of the conditions. Any chance that, man, Pittsburgh can beat them?
I mean, there's a chance, but it's a very slim one though. I mean, you'd have to have it still be like snow be a real big factor, wind to keep that passing game bottled up for Buffalo. But even then, I don't think it's going to be enough. I mean, it's been a great run for Pittsburgh to even get into the playoffs. So I mean, but I think it comes to an end. I even saw that they sent out messages to people if they wanted to make $20 an hour, they could come after 10 p.m. tonight to the stadium and get on the shoveling crew.
Statman, if the conditions weren't bad, man, I'd pick you up and let's go shovel snow.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd probably throw my back out the first 10 minutes.
Hey, you know what? I thought I was going to have a heart attack last weekend when I had to shovel my driveway because we never got a walk behind snowblower when we got the new tractor. I shoveled our whole driveway out last Sunday, and I actually did it without any problem. I was shocked.
Dude, I'd probably first I'd throw my back out within 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, and then I'd be completely winded after that. But I bet you they get a good turnout.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And it said you have to be over 18 with valid working papers. So that's all they're looking for.
So who you picking? You picking the Bills? I'm
picking the Bills, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Bills. So I hope it's a close game, though. I don't want to see – I thought both games yesterday were terrible.
Yeah, they were.
You know, the Chiefs game was boring. Miami didn't beat anybody all year that was good. You know, they beat up on the shit teams during the year. Against the good teams, they stunk. Tua can't play in bad conditions. And then the game early on, I mean, that defense, what they did to Joe Flacco. So, I mean, there were two kind of boring games. Yeah. So hopefully these games will be a little bit better. How about the Eagles Buccaneers? I mean, you don't know the status of Jalen Hurts. Hurts has not played well. Philly has not played well. Here's another interesting take. If Philly loses, is there a chance we can see them part ways and be looking for a new head coach?
No, I don't think so. I don't see it. I think he gets at least one more year. I think. I mean, they've been right in the mix. Since the past 4 or 5 years, at least. So I mean, I don't see him really wanting to part ways just yet. I don't see it. I think Philly wins this game. I don't think it's even going to be an issue.
Really? You like Philly? Philly's -3. How about this story though, Baker Mayfield? You know, I know Tampa won a division, I think, for the third year in a row. I mean, that division that they're in is terrible.
Yeah.
It's bad. But, I think he's kind of, what's the word? Re-energize his career. I think he had a great year for Tampa, what he's done for that franchise this year. I think he's probably the quarterback going forward, in a horrible division. I'm going to pick Tampa, Statman.
Wow.
I'm going to pick Tampa. I don't think Philly's played well. The last 2 or 3 weeks. They didn't play well in New York. They pulled their starters, I think, at halftime, and it was 24-0. I think being this game's in Tampa, I mean, listen, it's not going to surprise me if Philly beats them by a couple touchdowns, but I just don't think they've played well, and I think Tampa's played pretty well, down the stretch. So I'm going to pick Tampa at home today. I like the Bills at home. I like all the home teams today. But if there's one road team that I think can win, I think it's the Rams, Statman, over your Lions.
Yeah, I mean, because it's because of what's going on. I mean, I think that's why. I mean, you got Stafford coming back to try to win another one in front of Detroit fans. So yeah, I could easily see it happening. I don't want it to happen, but it could happen.
Statman, the last few minutes, I just want to recap with you, get your thoughts. Michigan wins the national championship. Great. I said that the game ball should go to the defense, and what Jesse Minter was able to do with Michael Penix. Penix missed a couple throws, early in that game, and Michigan 300-something yards on the ground, and that defense has been really good all year. What'd you think of the game?
I mean, it was textbook Michigan football all the way. I mean, and it was kind of what I expected. I mean, I figured that Quorum was going to get his touches, and I thought he would run roughshod over Washington's defense. He did. I thought they were going to, play that they were going to be able to shut down Penix. They did. So, I mean, it definitely fulfilled a lot of the expectations I had going into it. And I thought it was just great to see Michigan win the national title. I mean, I think they've deserved it after all they've went through. Ever since Harbaugh's got there. I mean, he came in with a lot of hype surrounding him, and then he went through that whole stretch where he couldn't beat Ohio State or some of the other rivalry games, the Penn States, the Michigan States. So to see it all come together for him after all that, I mean, I thought it was a great story, and I couldn't be happier for Michigan.
Well, I keep checking my phone because J.J. McCarthy's supposed to announce today if he's staying or he's going. And then I think you'll probably see the dominoes fall with Michigan. But I think you're going to see them lose some guys. I think they're going to return a lot of key guys next year. They got a really tough schedule next year. But I think one of the things that Michigan and Jim Harbaugh has established is the blueprint to beat Ohio State and to beat some of these good teams that have all these five-star recruits. And listen, Michigan's got some five stars, but when you look and see the 3- and 4-star players on Michigan compared to what Alabama had, what Ohio State had, I think the player development, but I think it's been the trenches.
Yes.
The offensive line, what that defensive line was able to do they didn't sack Penix a lot, but they disrupted him, quite a bit. And at the end of the game, you see Penix walking off, holding his side, he's limping. That's just been the blueprint is the toughness, the physicality in the trenches. And again, I think if Jim Harbaugh stays, and again, I would love him to stay. I think he's quirky. I think he's good for college football. I think he's a winner. I think the Big Ten runs through Michigan right now until somebody knocks them off that pedestal. And I think what Ryan Day's doing now is maybe the blueprint is if you can have guys that stay another year, like Michigan had a lot of guys stay and say, you know what? Bet on us. We're coming back. We want to chase that national championship. And maybe that's what Ryan Day is going to do. But you could have all the five-star guys, Statman. You have to be able to coach and get it done on the field. And we'll see if Ohio State can do that. We'll see if Jim Harbaugh goes to the NFL. But my question is going to be, and I think many people, Michigan people, think that Sharon Moore is going to be a slam dunk, the next coach. I don't think he is. And the reason why I don't think he is, I was saying this before you jumped on, is this was a senior-oriented Michigan team with a lot of experience. It was a lot of guys back from a year ago where Sharon Moore, who's the play caller, and did, listen, a fantastic job calling plays for Michigan. I'm not going to deny that. But when you're coaching a team that Michigan had, you really just got to manage the team. I think he managed the team well. I think Jim Harbaugh put a lot into his coordinators. I think he's got the two best coordinators in the country. I think Jesse Minter was the best defensive coordinator in the country. I think, again, the blueprint for Michigan was that defensive tree from Baltimore. Mike Minter or Mike McDonald, who is the defensive coordinator for the Ravens. He was with Michigan a few years and then went on Baltimore staff. And then guess who came to Michigan? Another Baltimore defensive coordinator. I think that's the blueprint to stop these spread offenses is what Michigan has been able to do. So I'm not sure Sharon Moore, he might be the plug and play so they don't lose recruits. But I think you have to open up the search and at least see who's interested because it's a top 1 or 2 job in the country.
Yeah, definitely. Now it is. Yeah, definitely.
And I think if Jim goes to the NFL, unfortunately, I think he takes Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator, with him. I would think. Now Minter says he loves Michigan. Sharon Moore says he loves being at Michigan. I don't think he keeps both those guys if he goes to the NFL. Now, if he stays, I think the whole staff stays. But maybe it opens up a door for Mike Hart to jump into a coordinator spot if Sharon Moore gets the head job. So we'll see what happens. I'm waiting. I keep checking my phone all day to see if I get the notification to see if I can break any news. But JJ is going to declare, supposedly he's going to make his decision this morning. So I'd anticipate a decision here anytime soon today. All right, Statman, it's been fun. I was happy to see you were able to jump on this morning. We'll see next week. I think Pags has hockey on Sundays. My daughter has, and Coach Medisa's daughter playing the same hoop team. So we'll have to see what time we'll run it back next week. But I'm happy that you were able to jump on here this morning.
Yep, absolutely. It was great.
So, all right, man, keep in touch, and we'll
do.
talk again throughout the week, and appreciate you.
Sure, absolutely. Let me know.
All right, man.
All right.
I just want to make sure that I thank the stat man for jumping on here this morning. Thanks to, again, Cortland State head football coach Curt Fitzpatrick jumped on this morning to talk about the season they had. I'll post that interview up, so if you missed the show, you can hear it. Statman and I went through, made some picks for today. I hope his Lions win. I just hope they don't boo Matthew Stafford, because I think what he meant to that whole city is special. So hopefully that'll be a good reunion today for him. And we'll see if the Bills can beat the Steelers. We'll see how the weather holds up. We'll see how the weather holds up for some of the games today. But on behalf of the entire crew here at the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch, Coach Pags, Coach Medicis, the Statman, and myself, have a good rest of the weekend, everybody. We'll see you next week here on the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch.